Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of This Day and Age. I'm your host, David Wisner. I'm pleased to be joined today by Spiros Pengas, formerly the Vice Mayor for Tourism and International Relations at the municipality of Thessaloniki. Now he's the founder and CEO of WiseRam, a Thessaloniki-based consultancy that works on tourist issues and other sorts of activities. Spiro, I'm really happy to have you on the program. I've just recently learned that you and I are colleagues, teaching colleagues at ACT, the American College of Thessaloniki. Welcome to the program. How are you managing these days?
Thank you, David. Thank you for inviting me. First of all, it's nice to see you again. It's true that we are colleagues now. I'm teaching destination marketing at the postgraduate program of hospitality and tourism studies at the American College, and I'm very happy. Has been a great experience. And now I'm actually spending a good time home, having plenty of time to read my books, to get informed, to be with my loved ones. So I'm pretty much enjoying. It may sound as a paradox, but I've been so much out in the free space, in the public space the previous years, that actually now I'm enjoying my time home with a loved one. So I had a good time, I must say.
Okay, so lockdown hasn't really been too onerous, hasn't been too difficult for you.
No.
You are a native of Thessaloniki. You're educated abroad in Germany, principally. As a Hellene, as a Greek, as a native of Thessaloniki, what is your impression of the way Greeks and your fellow Thessalonians have been managing during the crisis? What are your general impressions about the way Greeks are reacting to the lockdown?
Yes, I have been positively impressed. I'm very happy that the Greeks have been disciplined all these days, and they managed to contain the virus. I mean, it's a good news that Greece is not having so many virus issues and people who suffered and so on. This is a very good development for the country, and I think we can take advantage also of that development in the tourism area in the next few months. That is something that is very much needed for the country. You know the percentages, how much high the tourism sector in Greece is, so it is needed that it starts again. And I think that the way the Greek government and the Greeks handled the case of coronavirus has been a very positive thing that will come back in a positive way to Greece and to Thessaloniki, I hope.
Now, you mentioned a brief moment ago that you've been very much a public figure of late, and I remind our audience that you were the Vice Mayor for Tourism and International Relations. How has the transition been from being a public figure to being a private citizen again? I mean, your concerns, I imagine, are very much the same, but you're working in a different sphere, are you not?
Yeah. I mean, it was very smooth because it was a decision that I had taken a long time ago. I had decided to have a break or to stop being on the political stage after the end of the period of Yannis Boutaris. I have been active the last 9 years. It has been a very long time to be in a public office. And my perception is also that you cannot do that forever. I mean, the good thing or the right thing to do is to serve for a while, and then go back to your own business. And I was coming from the civic society and the business world. I had my own business, so I decided to go back to the world, which I believe is equally adventurous and interesting as the political stage. So it has been very smooth, and the transition was nice, and I'm enjoying my time now. I'm enjoying my free time, and I think and I believe I'm active also in a very productive way by doing my own business.
Okay, so that's what I really wanted to talk about. That's a perfect transition here. You have been, you basically launched an initiative, which for want of a better title, we'll call Visiting Thessaloniki. And I suppose it's a way of keeping Thessaloniki in the minds of people who are thinking about tourist destinations. Tell me a little bit about what's happening. What are you thinking with this initiative?
Yeah, I mean, I believe you are familiar with the developments in the city the last few years and how Thessaloniki has become again cosmopolitan and an international destination. I mean, that was a strategic aim of the previous local government under the guidance of Yannis Voutaris.
Right.
So we did exercise a very active, very aggressive extrovert policy regarding Thessaloniki. I believe we managed to put Thessaloniki on the international map. We managed to attract visitors and tourists from all over the world the last few years. And this is a trend that was very much needed in the local society, in the local market. It opened up the city, it opened up the horizons of the city, and it brought extra income into the city. Okay. So when the whole crisis started, I got some telephone calls from friends and from citizens and so on, who are not so familiar with the newest developments, that are not anymore active in the local government. Right. But that somehow inspired me to start something. I didn't like that lack of action somehow. So I called some of my friends. I discussed that a little bit with friends that I have from tourism sector. I discussed it with Alexandros Thanos, who is the responsible guy for tourism development on the regional level. Okay. And also with some ex-colleagues, Giorgos Bazmadelis especially, who has been working with me in the tourism department of Thessaloniki. And we decided to start something with the powers that we have now, something on a private, personal level, inspiring our friends to follow us somehow. Okay. And we decided that one of the tools that we have today are the social media. So maybe we start a campaign in the social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, promoting Thessaloniki.
Okay, so it's a campaign, a social media campaign. You said
it's a social media campaign, actually, bottom up. We said we started bottom up as private persons. Even Alexandros did not get involved with his regional apparatus, the regional government apparatus. He said, I will follow you, do it as a private person, but please add the last week also some pictures of the region, not just Thessaloniki.
Not just Thessaloniki, not just the White Tower, right?
Yes, exactly. So we set an agenda together of 6 weeks, and we started. And this is somehow rolling as a snowball. It's getting more and more attraction. People are inspired. The locals are inspired, which is good. So they say bravo, and they follow, and they put their own pictures, and they repost and so on, which is great. And also we get some good remarks from our friends or from people we know from abroad. I mean, people are writing, yes, we will join, yes, we will come, see you in July, we'll come to Thessaloniki and so on. So, okay, I know this is not a huge campaign. It's not something that will change the fate of Thessaloniki, but, you know, it's something keeping the spirit up and keeping Thessaloniki on the map somehow.
Even that would be my next question. I mean, what sorts of outcomes would you hope to achieve here? I mean, a campaign is about information, it's about generating awareness. You know, when again would you think Thessaloniki will become the tourist destination that it was becoming in the previous 2, 3, 4 years? In other words, how long are we going to have to wait until we're able to think about incoming flights, incoming passengers, incoming tourists? How long is it going to take in your view?
It will take a while. I mean, it's not going to be easy in the beginning. This is for sure. There is a spread disappointment. There are people also involved in the tourism sector, are discouraged somehow. So one of the aspects of that campaign and the aims was actually to keep these people inspired. Okay. And I also, I was interviewed for a local media outlet, and I said that I would prefer not so phobic approach to the whole situation. Okay. I understand that it's very difficult for the hotel owners who have immense costs to open up their hotels. But let's show to the people abroad, let's show to our friends in the Balkan region who love us and who dream of coming down to Thessaloniki, that we are going to host them, to be open, to welcome them again. and at least open one floor of your hotel just to be open, to say welcome, to act aggressively, positively, show that we are here and we want you back. And I think the first pool of visitors, it's going to be in the Balkan area. I have traveled extensively the last few years in all the Balkan capitals and the cities, and I was impressed of how much all these people love Thessaloniki and the region. They dream of coming down here. I sometimes joke, and my partners and friends joke on that, but I say Thessaloniki and the region is really the Californian coast of the Balkans. Everybody dreams of coming down here. So we should not close our hearts and our homes and our spots and venues. Open up, show that we are here, and be the first city which will open up the tourism again for Greece.
How does what you're doing with your friends and colleagues in Thessaloniki resonate outside of the city in other parts of Greece? In other words, is there a similar initiative in Athens, or do you find other, maybe on the islands, other places in Greece where they're doing something similar, or is this a unique initiative?
I mean, I had some psychological support also from hotel owners here, from the president of the hotel association. He called me and said, "Thank you, Spiros, this is a great thing to do." And also I had some calls from other deputy mayors of tourism in the area, from Olympos, with Jan and I work already, so I have a very positive echo in what we're doing. Okay. Also, there was a cry out from Sparta, how can we do that too, and promote Sparta and so on. So there is
a big party this year with the anniversary of the feats of Leonidas and the 300 Spartans. So they have every interest in regenerating their tourist industry, do they not?
Yeah, they do have a great brand name, Sparta. I mean, this is a name that everybody knows abroad. So this is a chance for them.
Yeah, but with Thessaloniki still, I think, has some real great appeal after all. And I'm often asked, Dave, would you like to go down and work in Athens? There are more opportunities there. But I wouldn't give up the lifestyle that you have here in Thessaloniki. The people are more laid back, halara, as you like to say.
Exactly.
There is really an appeal here. And I suppose that's the question. Is that something you can translate into in a tourist campaign, tourism campaign? You say come to Thessaloniki because the people are really warm and friendly, and it's a much better place to visit than other parts of Greece.
Yeah, I mean, Thessaloniki, it's a cultural heavyweight, of course. I mean, there are so many monuments, so many layers of history. But actually, the first and main thing that we were selling in abroad when we were traveling the last few years was exactly the vibe that you have described that this city has. I mean, it's a youthful city, a lot of creative people strolling around. You don't have to get into the car. You just walk around. You have the great promenade. You meet young people, nice people, friendly people.
And as long as we're not in lockdown, you're free, you're welcome to walk along the seafront, right?
Exactly. So I think this is the main characteristic of the city, the vibe that it transcends also to visitors and to people who come and visit. I never heard of anyone who came to Thessaloniki that he didn't have a good time. The bet was to bring people over, and still is. I mean, this is the main obstacle. This is the main thing and the main action that we have to undertake.
Okay. Now, in what fundamental ways is the crisis going to alter the way people work now? I mean, these are the questions that we're starting to ask seriously. It was one of the rationales behind my launching this podcast series. At precisely the moment people are trying to understand where we are, start thinking where we're going. So where are we going? What is really going to change fundamentally in your industry, in your view?
Well, many things are going to change. I want to think rather and have in my mind the optimistic scenario. I think that we will overcome. My experience also in my past through politics the last few years, the years of the great social and economic crisis in Greece, showed me that we can overcome. I mean, and go back not to normality, but to a new state of things. And of course, we have to adapt Greeks are very adaptable. They have become very adaptable the last few years.
Yeah.
So they know how to react to crisis and do crisis management. It will change the international stage. And this is the issue. This is the problem or the challenge, is that we are not fighting against that situation alone, but we're fighting with the whole world, or at least the Western world and the people from Asia. Thank God it didn't become such a big issue in Africa. So it's going to be a challenging time. Tourism had to change anyway. We were discussing and having problems with over-tourism and the newest trends. So this will contain that problem, and now we'll move to other level of discussions and problems. And I think this is a great challenge to redefine also for us and for Greece the tourism sector, the tourism package, the tourism vision that we have. And this coincides also with the willingness of the Greek government, with Steve Ranakis, who came from Google down to Greece to work on that new branding of Greece. And I think this is a great time to do it. This is a challenging time, and it's time that we bring up also other very interesting destinations and places like Thessaloniki or Anina up, and not just attract people to come down to the great islands that we have to enjoy the sun and the sea, but also enjoy the culture, the vibe that we discussed about, and all these assets that this country has.
Great, great, great. Now, you've spoken to me a little bit as a former politician, or public figure, I prefer, as a businessman, a CEO, and an active businessman. Tell me a little bit about what it is to be an educator in the field of tourism today. How is your teaching going to have to adapt to the current reality? I'm rather curious about that.
Okay, this is something that is somehow has been lacking the last few years or even decades in Greece. The connection with what is happening in the world. We were very much introverted. We were very much concentrated on what we are doing, how we are doing, and so on. Right. And I think what also students are lacking is this connection to abroad, to the international developments, and the discussion in changes and in the way we deal with tourism development has started the last few years abroad, in the Scandinavian countries especially, where there is a new way of thinking. Sustainability is a key word, and many other new words and ideas which are not so public and so known in Greece. And I think what made also my teaching attractive was exactly that point, that giving and transmitting the experience and the actual experience that I have gained all these years, and the opening of a window to the world. I mean, connecting what is happening here with what is happening all over the world.
Now, is this some spirit you think that we'll export? You mentioned drawing inspiration from Scandinavian countries who have developed a rather novel approach to tourism. Are people in the next years going to be looking to Greece to say, God, those guys came up with something brilliant. They were faced with this terrible global crisis, and look what they have put on the plate for us. I mean, is this an export for Greece and for Greek thinking about their place in the world?
Yeah, I wish they would. I mean, this is exactly what I discussed recently also with the Greek German Chamber of Commerce. I went there and I met with Matthias, and I told him, okay, maybe Greece is a small country, has not been so successful the last few years, but regarding tourism, we're a superpower. I mean, we are number 10, number 15 in the world. We have experience. We know how to develop and how to manage tourism. And this is a knowledge and a know-how that we can transmit also to other countries. So, of course, people who are in that business in Greece have more knowledge and can transfer part of that knowledge also to people in Germany or in UK or in France. I mean, the tourism has boomed the last few years in Greece, and we have been very much involved. Many good people have been involved in that industry, And of course, they have gained knowledge, and this is a know-how that we can give over also to other countries, especially to our Balkan neighbors. I mean, I have discussed with Skopje and the Skopje mayor. I mean, and they asked me, how can Skopje be a destination? And I said, every place can become a destination with the right strategy and policy.
Okay. It's a question of appeal. I mean,
Yeah,
Skopje has its appeal. I think Thessaloniki has more appeal, as we said already.
of course. Okay, but you can take advantage of what you have.
Yes, indeed. And what we have in Thessaloniki is this incredible human capital, above all, young people, the universities, the professionals, people get involved in public affairs like yourself, who go sort of what we call the revolving door in American politics. You spend some time in government, you spend some time in the private sector, but either way, you're collaborating and you're contributing. Spiro, you mentioned that the transition to private life hasn't been too bad, and that you're managing fairly well during the lockdown. Where do you draw your inspiration? When you think you're a really active person, it's a case that I'd like to hold up to the public for admiration. Here's the person who's taking advantage of a terrible situation to try to make something positive come of it. But where do you draw your personal inspiration, if you don't mind my asking?
Yeah, it may sound like a cliche, but I do a lot of reading, as you can see.
Yeah, I see.
And I love also traveling literature, reading a lot about other places. Okay. I used to do that a lot also before becoming active in politics.
Okay.
And traveling is my main inspiration. I mean, by visiting other places, meeting people from these places, seeing other ways of living, this has been the biggest inspiration for me. And I believe, and that was also more or less, that was one of the pillars of our policies here in Thessaloniki, connecting, as I said also before, connecting the city to the world, becoming more extrovert, being more cosmopolitan, right, being open to other opinions and listening to other ways. And this is something that I always have in my mind, and I always have as a guide in front of me somehow.
Well, you've mentioned an involvement at the American College of Thessaloniki, and we have an incredibly diverse and international student body, a large number of American students. This will be our principal challenge in the coming months, is to convince people that it's safe to return, to think about studying abroad. International education is going to be an issue to be considered. We have also so many students who come from countries in Southeast Europe and the Balkans. Yeah. You mentioned that was part of your portfolio, if you will, as the vice mayor. But it does seem to me that this is one of the hidden assets of the city of Thessaloniki, that after all, it is quite an international city, and it has a long heritage of being an international cosmopolitan city.
Yes, and you are probably familiar with the initiative Studying Thessaloniki, which we started, connected public and private educational institutions. Yeah. And have been abroad, mainly in Serbia, in Kosovo, in Bulgaria, trying to attract students to come and study here in Thessaloniki. Because this is building up the human capital, as I said, which is, as you said, which is the main asset of the city.
Very fine. Okay. Spiro, we have young people who watch the podcast that we've been producing. This is the first cycle of an ongoing series, and we'll be addressing different challenges. I mentioned in a previous episode that it's a kind of a personal public service, and I thought, what could I do as an educator, as a person involved in civil society? I think my inspiration was quite similar to your inspiration to do this Visit Thessaloniki campaign. What do you have to say to young people who are stuck inside and really itching to leave the lockdown and get back to normal life? What is the maybe one or two pieces of advice that you'd be willing to share?
Okay. I want to tell them to be optimistic, first of all. I mean, the world doesn't stop going around. So they have to go out and be creative and try to do things not only for their own sake, but also for the sake of the city they live. And something that I learned, and that's why I got involved also in politics, is that you cannot grow yourself by not growing your environment. You have to grow all together. This is very essential. I mean, it's very difficult to flourish and to do something extraordinary in a very low or not progressive environment. So always keep that in mind. It's important that not just to grow yourself, but to help also others grow and attract them to follow you and become partners in that endeavors that you are going into.
Okay. Just to remind the audience, the purpose of these podcasts is, above all else, to draw attention to the types of thinking and activities underway among many of my Greek colleagues in Thessaloniki principally, but not only. I've spoken also with some people in Athens who are doing really very, very interesting and innovative things. So I had a kind of a trick question as I was thinking about how this interview would proceed, Spiro, and you've been a really good sport thus far. So here's my question: is it okay for a Greek like yourself to be proud of how Greeks have managed during the crisis?
Yes, I think it is. I'm very proud of the way we are still dealing with the crisis. As I said in the beginning, this is going to be a competitive advantage in the future. And I have to admit or say that the Greek government did a great job on the national level. Everybody followed also on the local level.
More
and
or less.
almost the citizens, okay, but with a few exceptions, as there are always a few exceptions. But actually, it has been a uniting process somehow. I mean, I believe that we get stronger and more united out of the process. And now it's also a very delicate moment the day after, how we open up our businesses. This is also something that the government has to take care of the professionals, of all the professionals, in order to keep that unity. Yeah. So I'm proud so far, and I hope that I will be proud also in the future in a few months. And I would be very proud if I see a boom in July or August in tourism.
Okay. Great. Excellent. Well, I want to thank you. Heartfelt thanks. And, we mentioned previously that we'd not really had much time to chat before. You've attended some of the events in the Dukakis Center. I followed your career as a public servant. And
I follow what you do, which is great.
If nothing else, being in lockdown and using the technology allows us to have these rather interesting and fruitful conversations. So Spiros Pengas, I want to thank you once again for joining us on the program. Look forward to seeing our friends in the audience.
Thank you, David.
Yet again, want to announce a rather innovative webinar that we're preparing for the month of May. Actually, it's a series of webinars. We're entitling it, This Year Everything Will Be Different. And we'll be focusing on the ways in which some of my colleagues here in Thessaloniki are trying to deal with the realities of the lockdown and social distancing when they plan and organize public events of the sort that we do quite frequently at the Dukakis Center. So we'll be welcoming organizers of cultural activities, of academic conferences, managers of local venues, and we'll be talking a little bit about how we deal with the current reality, what's going to change, how we invest in our future to keep the city of Thessaloniki alive. Once again, I'm very pleased to thank my guest, Spiros Pengas. We'll be signing off now. Bye then.